Everyone fights, no one runs. Welcome to the Kill It Podcast, where I, Christopher Bob Roberts, explain how I became healthy, wealthy, and happy by being ruthless with my friends, family, customers, and especially myself. And today, I am going to tell you the lesson that can be learned from karate brick breaking. We all know that karate used to be a serious martial art, and we all know that people would seriously, over a matter of years, condition their hands, their feet, their forearms, their shins, to the point that they could break solid objects. And we also know that breaking bricks and breaking boards used to be a test of your ability to apply the conditioning techniques that you've learned and developed. And we also know that there are not very many traditional martial arts at all in the world today. And the few people teaching traditional martial arts are basically, let's face it, it's child's daycare. But there is a lesson that you can still learn even from modern martial arts breaking techniques. I remember when I was a kid, I was learning the martial art Hapkido, and we would have demonstrations. Sometimes because we just want to have a party for like a holiday, so we'd all get together and we'd toss each other around and demonstrate weapons techniques and self-defense techniques. I personally was very agile, very flexible, very explosive even back then, so I was the guy who would like jump over people and break a couple boards with my feet before I hit the ground. And I remember at one of those first parties, there were a bunch of kids who were breaking some leftover boards. And what I saw was the kids who gave it their absolute all. They hit with everything they possibly had. Their hand passed right through the board. They didn't even feel it. But every once in a while, someone would go in there and doubt himself, and he would either not hit too hard because he didn't want to hurt himself, or he'd start swinging, but as his hand got close to the board, he'd kind of like slow down and slam on the brakes. And basically, the ones who didn't go all out hurt themselves. They hit the board hard enough to hurt themselves, but they didn't hit the board hard enough to break it. Now, there's a big lesson in here, because when you go after your goals, if you doubt yourself, if you just want to stick your toe in the water and see how things work out, if they don't work out right away, you're going to quit, or, well, what happens if it doesn't work? And you spend a whole lot of energy thinking about what's not going to work. You spend a whole lot of time working on something else instead of putting 100% effort into what you're doing. I'm not saying you're destined to fail. And I'm not saying that if you put 100% into everything, you're always going to succeed. But what I am saying is, if you go in less than 100%, less than 100% effort, less than 100% motivation, less than 100% belief, you are not going to have the same results as if you gave 100%. And I think this is one of the reasons why most people fail at most of the things they try to do. I think this is one of the reasons why most people fail at the first thing they try to do, and then after that, they never really set another goal, and they never really try to do anything. For instance, let's talk about sales, because there's a lot of mindset in sales. Whether you're a businessman or you're a commission-based salesperson, you've got to have your mind right if you want to be hyper successful. For instance, Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, these days he teaches selling. And he was talking about mindset. He was talking about how when he had his first sales job, he was going door to door selling steaks and different cuts of meat for a company that had people going door to door selling steaks and different cuts of meat. And he says the guy who trained him started off, he's like, hey, got these steaks. Do you want to buy some steaks? And, of course, a lot of doors don't open. A lot of doors get slammed in your face. A lot of people aren't interested. A lot of people are so disinterested they tell you to go fuck yourself and never come back. So after a while, the guy training him would go and knock on a door, and if it opened, he'd be like, yeah, you don't want to buy this, do you? Perhaps not with those exact words, but you could tell by his body language. You could tell by his tone of voice. You could tell by what he's saying that he's basically just like, got to knock on doors, got to say the words. But he didn't really believe it. And like I said, you do not ever have a guarantee. You are never going to sell 100% of everything to every single person you speak to. But like I said, You are not going to sell to everyone or be successful every time that it's possible to be successful, that it's possible to sell. As Jordan Belfort says, you're not going to close everyone who is closable on a sale if you don't give it your all. And this is the exact same thing, whether it's sales, this is the exact same thing with approaching a woman. If you go up to a woman saying, oh, you're so pretty, and I know a lot of guys talk to you, and I know I'm bothering you, and I know that you're up here, and I'm down there, and I'm sorry to bother you, but you're so pretty. Can we please talk? Can I buy you a drink? As opposed to going up and being like, hi, I see you're a normal human being. I am also a normal human being. Let's talk to each other like normal human beings, because I'm a confident individual who thinks that although we may not end up getting married and running off and building a family, I have every right to speak to you because I know I have a whole lot to offer. Like I said, if you go up to every sales situation, if you go up to every woman, if you go up to every time you want to change your physique, build muscle, burn fat, whatever, with 100% belief, 100% confidence, it doesn't mean you're always going to succeed right away. It doesn't mean you're going to sell to everyone. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful with every woman you speak to. It doesn't mean that you're immediately going to get results in the gym. But what it does mean is if you do not have the attitude of hitting the board with everything you've got, there are going to be a lot of women who think, you know, when he came over to me, I was excited because he looks pretty cool and he seems like a nice guy and he's attractive. But when he opened up his mouth and started talking, it was like, oh my God, like, dude, just have some confidence. Just be a normal person. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to be like thinking to themselves, actually, I do want to sell my house, but I don't know, the way this guy's talking, like I'm doing him a favor by listing my house with him as a real estate agent. It's like, God, this guy must suck because he has zero confidence. I'm going to sell my house, but I ain't going to sell it to this guy. So like I said, at the end of the day, you know, just because you believe and hit a 10-ton block of concrete as hard as you possibly can doesn't mean you're going to break it. Okay? It has to be possible. You have to have something to offer. You have to have a plan going to the gym. You have to have a business plan. You have to know what you're doing when you're selling a product or a service. And it has to be a good product or a service. But assuming that the basics are there, assuming you could break the board, assuming that you could attract the woman, assuming you could close the sale, if you go in there with anything less than 100% belief, if you go in there with anything less than 100% effort, if you go in there thinking more about how you don't want to hurt your hand than about how you want to break the board, there are going to be a lot of times where you could have been successful, but you weren't. Not because you didn't have what it takes, but because you didn't really try. So, make sure you go to ChristopherBobRoberts.com, where you will find links to every platform on which the Kill It podcast can be found, as well as links to all my social media accounts and an application for my one-on-one coaching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Kill It podcast wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts, and also check out the Brotherhood of Beasts, my group coaching program on brotherhoodofbeasts.com. Aside from that, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys again in the next episode.